Welcome back. We love doing updates, and tonight we've got a really visual, compelling story that's an update on the greatest generation. Right here in North Texas, every 2 minutes, approximately a World War II veteran passes away. That's about 550 a day in this country, according to recent U.S. Veterans Administration figures, which is why it's so important to preserve their stories and their legacy. One group that does that very well is the Commemorative Air Force, and we asked our man on the street, or on the runway, Don Wall, to find out what they're doing to preserve historical planes from that era. Hey, Don.
Hi, Jeff. The B-29 was a very advanced propeller-driven bomber that was flown by the United States towards the end of World War II. Its place in history was sealed when the B-29, the Enola Gay, dropped the first atomic bomb on Japan. Believe it or not, there is only one B-29 in the world that is still flying. It's called the Fifi, and right now it's sitting in a hangar nearby at Addison Airport.
In Hangar A1A at the Cavanaugh Flight Museum at Addison Airport, the Super Fortress Fifi, the world's only B-29 still flying, is getting its annual winter inspection. Tender, loving care from the crew of the Commemorative Air Force, inspecting the engines, the landing gear, the airframe, and all the systems required to keep it flying. It'll soon be flying to Florida to begin another season of air shows and public appearances that keep the history of World War II alive.
I've never quite seen the reaction that we get from people with Fifi. They're very taken back by her. She's an awesome presence to them. We get people that'll actually come up and start crying. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, she's like a rock star, the way we call it.
Fifi is probably the second most famous B-29 in the world. The Enola Gay, which dropped the first atomic bomb, is the most famous. Enola Gay is on display at the Smithsonian's Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C.
Enola Gay dropped the first atomic bomb on Hiroshima, Japan on August 6, 1945. 70,000 to 80,000 Japanese were killed, and that blast, along with a subsequent bomb at Nagasaki, is credited with ending the war and likely saving thousands of Japanese and American lives. While the morality of President Truman's decision continues to be debated, it is seldom debated by the men and women who fought in the war. Men like 91-year-old Lucky Luckadoo, who flew 25 B-17 missions over Europe and then transitioned over to the B-29 as an instructor.
I look back on it as a very saving day, and of course we all who participated in World War II were very anxious for it to be over and to get back to our civilian lives.
A few years later, Lucky actually got to fly the Enola Gay to an aircraft graveyard in Texas, but they didn't tell him what plane it was until he landed.
Well, they just said, well, you didn't realize it perhaps, but that was the ship that dropped the bomb.
And what was your reaction?
Well, I thought, why are they putting it in? Why aren't they putting it on display then instead of putting it in storage?
Eventually, the historical significance of the Enola Gay prevailed, and it was restored.
Well, I'm very proud to have been the one selected to do that.
Lucky Luckadoo is enjoying good health, but World War II veterans are dying off, which is why the Commemorative Air Force works so hard to keep the old warbirds like Fifi still flying.
Basically, to never forget. You know, we're trying to represent one of the greatest generations that ever lived, and let people know exactly what it took to keep our freedom alive.
And the Fifi will be flying again soon off to Florida for about 6 weeks for the Air Power History Tour. Lucky Luckadoo will turn 92 in March, both still going strong.
Wow.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
How did he say it felt after he found out that he flew the Enola Gay? Was he just totally shocked, or? He
was impressed. He enjoyed flying the B-29. He loved flying the B-17s. He thought they were really easy to handle. The B-29s were bigger, a bit harder to handle, more like driving a car, he said, than flying an airplane. But the experience
So it wasn't like he'd flown a hearse or something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was like, wow, this was the plane. So it had a great significance to him.
I imagine it's getting harder and harder to keep those vintage planes running because parts are hard to come by and fewer people know how to repair them.
Right, and that's why they spend much of the winter going through every bit of that airplane to check out all the systems the landing gears, the engines, every single bit of it. They check it out as best they can because of course, they want it to be safe.
Is it on display in Addison? You said it's based.
It's not on display right now. It's in a hangar. It's in a hangar, and guys go to work on it every day.
Wow.
So how can the public go see it, or do they have access?
Well, you can't really see it right now. Occasionally, it is on display, and they have a whole schedule for the upcoming year, which they continue to work on. And so, from time to time, it'll be available here, and they do show it at air shows around the country.
But it's at the Kavanaugh.
It's at the Kavanaugh Museum now. Yeah.
Okay, great story. Thanks, Don.
Excellent.
Wonderful. Well, one day it's winter, and the next day it's not. Well, coming up next on the Texas Daily, PBS chef Christy Rost shows us a white chili that you can make for the next cold front, and you probably have most everything you need on hand already. And wow, it smells great.
In here.
She's coming up next.
There it is.